Good morning, everyone here today. My name is Karen Brown. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our first guest speaker, Mr. I. Donald Nelson. For those of you who do not know, Mr. Nelson is a legend in our community and the field of education. He has sacrificed and devoted his life to teaching and mentoring future and current educators. He has made an indelible impression upon my life as well as many others. Donald Nelson, an educator in the midst of his second retirement. Donald's higher education journey provided an educational experience at Central State University, Wilberforce, Ohio, UAPB at Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Oklahoma State University at Stillwater, Oklahoma, University of Arkansas at Magnolia, Henderson State University at Arkadelphia, Arkansas, and East Texas University, Texarkana. This educational exposure led to a master's degree in history and political science and a specialist degree in educational administration. He shares the unique blessing of being the only African American principal at Arkansas High School, Texarkana. Donald retired from the school district after 37 years in 1998 as the deputy superintendent, but not from education. He spent 9 years as Head Start director, 2 additional years as director of the Southwest Arkansas Development Center Council Incorporated, and 11 years on the school board. He is a 56-year and a life member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, a Prince Hall Mason, interim chairman for the board at the Jameson Center of Kindness, and a co-host for KTOY Radio Sunday Show. Donald is married to Geraldine Gibson Nelson, has 2 children, Marcus and Fritzy, and 3 grandchildren, Jade, Alexia, and Kaylin. He is also a trustee at the 11th Street Baptist Church. At this time, I present to you Mr. I. Donald Nelson.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, this is a novice and a young man, and I still consider myself to be a young man at 180, who's working with and dealing with some equipment that's made for youngsters. So please let me apologize. Ms. Brown, I thank you for that introduction. I had just only planned for you to go through 2 lines of it because those are the only 2 lines that's possibly that's important, and that's the fact that I'm here. Let me say again, good morning to all of the members of NETABSE and your friends and your family and what the case may be. And I do want you to know that I appreciate you allowing a little guy like me to come on and speak to you this morning. I know a lot of your members. I know how outstanding they are in the community. And after Mrs. Brown called me and asked me if I'd speak, my heart said no, but my mouth said yes. And then after I got off the phone, I looked in the mirror. You ought to try that sometime. Look in the mirror to see who you see. And whoever you see in that mirror, what you need to do is just kind of ask him some questions. And this is what I said to myself. Boy, do you know what you've done? Do you know you're getting ready to speak to a group of high profile summa cum laudes, magna cum laudes, and cum laudes. And you have to take under consideration and remember that you actually have your degree from Sunday school. And your ranking was, thank you, Lordy. So now here I am, I'm out there. I realize I'm talking to all you high profile educators and other leaders, but I'm going to do my best. I want to take an opportunity to thank Mrs. Janelle Ingram and Mrs. Karen Brown. They've just done what you do for old people, and that's grab them by the hand. And they've carried me through every corner, through every alley, through every nook until I got here this morning. I'm to talk about leadership in a challenging time. And in my opinion, I happen to be a leader. I'm going to focus pretty much on the educational leadership. I happen to be a leader for some 27 years in administration. And I've never found a time when it was not challenging. Every day, every year, in my opinion, is a challenging time. Before I go further, I want to thank Brother Lee Williams for trying to give me a doctorate degree. He called me doctor several times. Very fortunate to me for a great part of my life, Dr. Carl Nelson was the president at TCC. And then there was a Dr. Don Nelson that actually served at SAU and Magnolia. So between those two guys, I just didn't find it. I said, well, they're going to call me doctor anyway. And then Brother Lee Williams in the introduction is going to call me down a doctor. So in the meantime, thank you all for conferring the doctorate on me that I really did not have. Let me say a little bit this morning about leadership. Leadership is not easy. It's not easy because it's not easy to get people to follow. Now, and it kind of depends upon who you're leading. If you're leading ducks to the pond, then that's one thing. If you lead the horses to the corral, that's easy. But if you're talking about leading people who are very sharp, educationally astute, it's not sometimes the most easiest thing in the world. I do want to say that I have the greatest amount of aspirations and the greater amount of appreciation for your organization. Dan Haskins, who is one of my fraternity brothers, tried his best on several occasions to get me to go to the meetings. He said, Don, I know you've been to any number of meetings, the North Central Association for Secondary Schools and Colleges and other meetings, but you haven't been to anything until you've been to this meeting. Unfortunately for me, it just so happened that at the time that they went, that was the time that I did not have a chance to get away, and I wound up not being able to go. He also informed me that he was going to start a local organization. And he said, Don, why don't you come and join? By that time, I was nearing the end of my active career in education. Now they said, well, let the younger people join that. But I understand that you all do great and wonderful work here. And I certainly want to give a shout out to Dan, because I know Dan and Brenda Stewart and several others were actually in the charter group here in Texarkana for that particular organization. Again, I kind of feel like I'm between the rock and the hard place, because I know this is not your first time having this session. You had it on last year. George Moore, Thelma Forte, and others were the speakers. And then I see the eloquent faces of these people who are going to speak today. And I'm just saying, how in the world did I get myself into this? But just let me say again, leadership, it's not easy. It's very challenging. Oftentimes, those of us who are in leadership, we have very fancy and elaborate titles. But I used to say to leaders when I spoke to them that it's not about the title. Leadership is a job, and it's very challenging. Just because you have your name on a contract does not guarantee that you're going to be an effective leader. I see leaders as being 4 basic things. And I think these 4 basic things tend to determine just how well respected. You have to remember that the people who decide whether we're effective and efficient is not us, it's the people who follow us. So I'm saying first, you have to be prepared. I mean, that's every day. A leader has no time to coast. Now, maybe some of the people who follow him are going to take a day off, but there's no days off for leaders. So you must be prepared. The people who follow you want to know that you know what you're talking about, because for sure, you can't lead where you haven't been, and you can't teach what you don't know. So you have to be prepared. And then if you're going to deal with people, you have to be fair. Now, again, many times we get fairness mixed up with treating people the same. You can't treat everybody the same, but you can treat everybody fair. Now, dealing with people, again, as I said, who many of them are as sharp as you are, you have to be firm. You have to be firm. You have to mean what you say and say what you mean. And then the 4th thing that you must be, and that to me, this is the most important one, works with leaders, works in schools, works in churches, works with, and that is you must be consistent. Many people, and most people that I see that fail, is because of the fact they're not consistent. They're warm today, lukewarm tomorrow, and cold the next day. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistently prepared, consistently firm, and consistently fair. Now, there's one thing for sure, people are not going to let you be firm unless you're fair. If you are not fair, they are not going to allow you to be firm. Good leaders must be efficient and effective. People are not just going to follow you because you sit in the chair. They want to know first, do you know what you're talking about? If you're talking about having a pep rally today and you're not prepared, or you getting ready for teacher session tomorrow and you're not prepared, they don't respect that. And then they want you to be effective. What it is that you're talking about, it needs to be right on point. You need to be totally organized. There must be a plan. You must plan your work and work your plan. That's the way leaders in order to get the followers to follow them. I said to many leaders that you have to be sure that leadership is something that you want to do. It's not easy. People now will let you lead because of the fact they don't want to be bothered. It's not because of the fact they're not more qualified, but they just don't want to be bothered. So again, I found out in later years what really happened to me. I happened to wind up being the principal of Arkansas High in 1986. And of course, there were people who were there who never thought that they would see a black man. Not only did they not think they'd see one, but they certainly did not think that they would have a black man as a principal and their supervisor. And then I found out that one of the things that leaders must do, well, another thing, you must do the unexpected. Don't ever put yourself in a position where actually they know exactly what you're going to do. And especially at that time, if you were an African-American leader, you had to do the unexpected. So what I did this summer, I spent the entire summer getting ready for my first on-campus faculty meeting. And sometimes in being in a leadership role, your first impression is a lasting impression. So I knew that that first meeting that we had in the afternoon on the first day was going to be actually the real deal for me. So what did I do? I said to myself, what is it they don't expect of you? And right off the bat, I said, well, you're African American. They don't expect you to be on time. And secondly, they don't expect you to be organized. I made sure that those two particular things, on the day we had the meeting started at 1 o'clock. I was there ready to go 10 minutes before the time. They were shocked. They didn't say it, but I saw it on their faces. I also had an outline on the chalkboard saying we're going to do this first and something else second. The thing that really put them to work and gave them and established an impression for me is that at that year we had hired 22 new people on our staff. We had a staff of 108. That year we had 22 new people. I was able to, and I practiced, and that's why leaders have to practice. If it just doesn't come when you wake up in the morning and it's in your head, you have to practice. I practiced and memorized those 22 staff members with no note, no papers, talked about where they came from, where they had graduated, and whatever. I could see the staff sitting on the end of their seats. You know, I could see them saying, we just can't believe a color board can do that. So I'm saying to those who want to be leaders, or those who are leaders, you have to do the unexpected. You have to do things that you don't expect them to do. God let me live long enough, and I certainly have not been called to preach, but I have been called to teach. And I'm saying to all of you that whatever you're doing is a calling. And if it was not for the will of God, you wouldn't be doing it. So don't forget to give him some thanks and some honor every day. He let me live long enough to know that being at Arkansas High School as the first African-American principal was an assignment from him. I thought, being a youngster, like many youngsters do, that I had gone to college and certainly I had not been locked up and I had done things that were honorable, whatever the case may be, and it was all on me. He let me live long enough to know that, Donald, no, it was not you. That on the day that I chose Moses to go to Egypt, and I said to him, he tried to get out of it because he was 80 years old. That was not a young man's challenge. He said to them, I want you to go to Egypt, and I want you to leave my people out of bondage who've been into bondage for 400 years. He knew right then that in 1981, that there was a young man with thick lips, dark green with curly hair, that he wanted to assign to Arkansas High. He also knew about a Janelle Ingram, about a Karen Brown, about a Dr. Morris. He knew about the rest of you, because wherever you are, wherever the assignments that you're in, he put you there. And one thing I like about God, I mean, he has no special person. Once he assigns you, he also orchestrates your path. I look back and I said, how did I make it at that particular time? Because there were a lot of people who were not prepared for an African-American leader. But once I realized he put me in that position, he put Mrs. Beck, he put Mrs. Monroe, he put any number of people who were white who were there, who were in my path. And he'll do that. He'll put palm leaves in your path when he chooses you for your leadership. I said again, leadership is not easy. You have to be real. People want to see the real you. They don't want to see fake news. You know, and again, because you can't teach them anything you don't know, and they want you to be very, very, very effective. Uh, I found out that in dealing with followers, they don't always believe in your philosophy. They don't always buy into your philosophy. You got a new program that you're introducing. They would prefer, specifically teachers, would rather not have to go to staff developments and do new things. So in the meantime, you have to win them over. You have to win them over. It's not easy. You can't do like the man that I know who's up there who pretends that you know it all, no more than the doctors, no more than the lawyers. There was no way I knew more than the math, the people in the math department of the science department, because I was a student of history and political science. They don't need to know how much you know. Spend every day giving somebody on your staff a pat on the back. I never passed up an opportunity. If I had a banquet or an assembly, never passed up an opportunity to give somebody else the credit. Always brag on somebody else on your staff, give them the credit. And everybody won't do the right kind of things. You'll have some people who just not going to be on the right channel. So you pull them over in the corner and you talk with them and let them know, because it's better to praise in public and criticize people in privacy. Again, if you want to be respected, you have to exceed the expectations. You can't do that. Leaders don't work by the clock. They have to work by the challenge. I remember on any number of the nights that I did not sleep because I knew I had a program the next day and I had to be ready. Leaders wind up doing some of the smallest jobs. I had Bill Clinton coming for my watch program. I told the custodians to clean the restrooms and down around the cafeteria. They generally cleaned them in the morning. They walked off and didn't clean them. So you know who had to pull off his coat and clean the restrooms? It was Donald Nelson, the leader. So I'm saying sometimes some of the smallest jobs we have to do without a doubt. Working with people, you have to make decisions. I think it was Madeline Hunter that says that, specifically principals. She wrote a program for the teaching, effective teaching. She said that on a common day, a principal and a superintendent and others, I'm sure it apply to you, you may walk in and have to make 500 decisions about things that you didn't even know that was going to occur. Now that's not easy, but be big enough. If you make a decision and the decision is not right, come back and change the decision, because the people know that you're wrong and when you made a wrong decision. I said to my assistant principals, I had 3 for each grade level, when you deal with discipline with students, be sure to make a decision that will stand up at the school board. If you make a decision on a student and you examine yourself and you have a question about whether this one will fly through the school board, change that decision. Because when you deal with people, you may wind up in a lawsuit, or if you're dealing with students, you may wind up, without a doubt, before the board. So if you can't make a decision that you feel like that's basically going to be viewed and accepted by the school board, be sure to change that decision. My time is primarily up, and what I want to do, I want to just go through a general humanitarian thing with you and say this. Many times we get into positions because of the fact we want to make a lot of money. But let me tell you something. If it's a job, generally you're not going to get rich. So let me tell you, the richest place on earth is not an oil field or a gold mine or a bank. It's a cemetery where there's an abundance. Let me tell you what's there. There's dreams that were never followed, inventions that were never developed, poems and music that were never written, skills that were never used, talents that were never utilized, resolutions that were never followed, careers that were never completed. That's the richest place. And then as I close, I want to say to some of you have applied for positions that you did not get. Don't worry about it. That's actually basic. Sometimes that's not a position God wants you to have. Thanks again for inviting me to speak. I hope I said something that some of you can take with you and you remember. Thanks again to Mrs. Brown and Miss Ingram.